He watches me from the fence every night, without moving, like a small statue with overlarge eyes waiting for me to make the wrong sound. I didn't notice at first. Moving boxes and cheap coffee blur the first week in a new place. You learn the shape of rooms by bumping into them. His presence crept in at the edge of those bruised, indifferent nights, an ember of attention on the other side of the yard that refused to die. At dusk, when the world thins and the street lights hum into being, he'd climb the warped plank of the neighbor's fence and sit, front paws curled over the top, head cocked as if listening to something only he could hear. The yard between us was ordinary, a sagging bird bath, a dead magnolia that dropped sticky blossoms, a strip of grass that never caught the sun. But the moment my lamp spilled light into the kitchen, his face would appear in the darkness beyond the glass. Always the same, small, shaggy, and impossibly focused. I began telling myself convenient things. Dogs run on routine. Maybe he's bored. Maybe his owners leave a radio playing and he's waiting for a voice. Rationalizations are addictive. They let you sleep without imagining worse. Still, there were details that didn't fit. The way his pupils swallowed the moon, leaving only rings of black that seemed to drain the light rather than reflect it. The faint, metallic scent that clung to him, like old coins and hospital air, whenever the porch light washed the fence and I could see the edges of his fur. Once, I opened the back door to toss a pizza box, and he did not bark or wag. He simply leaned forward, nose trembling, and made a sound that wasn't quite a whine, a slow, wet inhale that settled in my chest like cold water. Small things started to go wrong. My keys, left on the kitchen counter, would vanish for hours and reappear beneath the welcome mat, right where no one would think to look. Scratches appeared on the inside of the back door. Delicate, deliberate marks that traced a shape I couldn't name. At 3 a.m., I woke to the soft thud of tiny paws on the porch, though the house was locked and I live alone. When I crept to the window and lifted the blind, he was there, head tilted, closer than the fence should allow, his collar tag glinting dully. The tag had no name, only a single perfectly round dent worn into the metal, as if someone had pressed a coin there and never stopped. Neighbors notice some things. They notice a dog that never moves. They notice a man pacing his kitchen floor like a trapped animal. I told myself I would ask. I wrote the question in my head a dozen ways. Is that your dog? Does he belong to you? But mornings arrive with errands, and the neighbor's house is always dark, curtains drawn, the mailbox empty. When I do see a person across the street, a teenager dragging a bike past, an old woman scattering seed in her yard, none of them meet the dog's gaze. It's as if he is watching only me, and in that watching, there is a patience too large for a creature his size. The patience of someone who has been waiting for the exact moment I would look back. It got worse when he started answering. At first, it was mimicry, a tilt of his head when I hummed, a small echo of the cadence of my laugh. That could be explained away as coincidence. Then, on a night when rain hammered the roof and the city sighed through the vents, I heard my name spoken in a voice that sounded like scraping paper folded into a child's whisper. I froze with a spoon halfway to my mouth, every instinct screaming to open the door and demand an explanation. The sound came again, from the yard. Not a bark, not an animal sound at all, but 3 syllables arranged like a memory. Tom, home? The syllables matched the cadence of a neighbor I hadn't heard in years, the voice of my late aunt on the answering machine, the one phrase she used to leave at the end of messages. I had never told anyone that story. I hadn't even thought of that phrase in months, and yet there it was, shaped into air by those small, terrible jaws. After that night, sleep thinned. The house learned new noises. A soft dragging beneath the bedroom door at 2:17 a.m., the whisper of nails across hardwood where no paws should reach. I found my things moved into patterns I recognized from my childhood. My grandmother's tea tin placed perfectly atop my stack of unpaid bills, an old Monopoly token tucked under the pillow where my knees used to hit the mattress. It was as if the dog was engraving a language out of my past, leaving crumbs of memory to guide me towards something I did not want to find. I started keeping a notebook. I wrote down times, sounds, the shape of the dents on the collar, the exact pattern of scratches on the door. The more I documented, the less the evidence comforted me. The notebook pages began to smell faintly of wet earth and antiseptic, the same metallic tang that hovered whenever the porch light found him. Sometimes between entries, I would find a single word scrawled in the margin in a hand that was not mine. Sorry. No explanation. Just the word, damp and hurried, as if someone had written it and then licked the ink to smudge the letters into pleading. People asked if I was ill. My doctor said stress can do strange things. My sister sent me a list of therapists. I agreed to all of it because agreeing is easier than listening to a creature that knows what your secrets sound like. Still, there were moments when reason frayed. I woke once to the pressure of small paws on my chest, warm and heavy, and I could feel breath that matched the pattern of my own inhalations. When I pushed the dog off, he tumbled back over the fence and stared at me with eyes that suddenly reflected something like human calculation. For the first time, I felt watched, not as an animal watches, but as a patient under the steady gaze of a doctor testing reflexes. He had moved from curiosity to diagnosis. And then I found the photograph. It was under the floorboard beneath my closet, the one I keep loose to hide junk. I pried it open with numb fingers and pulled out an old Polaroid, edges yellowed, the image soft with time. In the photograph, the house looked younger, the fence was new and bright. In front of it, a small figure sat on the top plank, not a human child, but something with the head of a dog and the posture of a boy. Around its neck, a collar with a single round dent. Behind the figure, half shaded by the winter sun, stood a man I recognized too late. My father, smiling in a way I had never seen in life, the same face I had tried to forget. The caption on the back, written in a hand I did not recognize, read, "He waits in the places we leave." The photograph killed whatever fragile bravado I had left. I carried it like contraband, the edges digging into my palm, and the world narrowed to a single axis: the fence, the dog, the man in the picture, whose smile lived in my nightmares. I told myself I was going to end it. I don't know what end it meant then. Call the owner, call animal control, shout until someone noticed. Only that I could not continue to live as a person audited by something with the patience of a calendar. That night, the air was cold enough to make the voice from the yard visible. Little white puffs that vanished as soon as they left the dog's muzzle. I left the porch light off on purpose because light felt like a betrayal. My steps on the pavement sounded too loud, my heartbeat a drum that betrayed me. When I reached the fence, the dog was already there, the silhouette of him layered over the moon like a cutout. He didn't climb. He had been waiting on the other side, as if the fence were a stage and I the actor late for his cue. "Why are you here?" I asked, and the words felt foolish in the open air. He answered with a sound that was half laugh, half wind through a pipe. It wasn't my aunt's voice this time. It was my father's. The same cadence that used to read the paper at the kitchen table, the same low hum he carried when he thought he was alone. Names folded into each other. I stumbled back, wood splintered under my palm. The fence had always been a boundary. Now it felt like a membrane. The world unglued in a way I cannot describe without tasting iron. The dog's eyes, those vast accusatory wells, filled not with reflection, but with tiny scenes. My 10th birthday, the night I left the door unlocked. My father's last evening, the way laughter could be a slap in our house. Each image landed on the inside of my skull like hail. He was showing me the ledger of things we'd never spoken aloud and demanding interest. I reached for him because I thought touching might be denial. His fur was warm and smelled of pennies and disinfectant, and the faint burned sugar of the cake in that old photograph. When my fingers closed on the collar, I felt a small, hard indentation press into my skin. It fit like a puzzle piece. The world tilted, not with motion, but with recognition. This was never about a neighbor's dog. It was about unfinished accounts. Somewhere behind me, a window clicked open in a house that had been empty for years. A curtain breathed. In that sound, there was patience and mercy and a verdict. The dog leaned forward, pressed his forehead to mine, and for a single, monstrous second, the eyes in his face were not canine at all, but the tired, attentive glare of a man who had been learning how to wait. I stumbled backward, fingers snagged on splintered wood, and fell into the grass. Under my hand, something clinked, a round, cold, dented tag that matched the imprint on the photograph. I held it up like evidence, and in the pale light I could see, etched faintly around the dent, tiny letters that read, "We stay where we're needed." I slept sitting against the door, the tag folded in my palm. When I woke, the house smelled like rain and old coins, and the bed beside me was warm as if someone had just stood up. My throat felt raw with something between a laugh and a sob, and when I touched my neck, there was leather and a weight I could not explain. I woke with his collar around my neck.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.